Welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show. Still to speak to Nigel Farage, still to speak to Boris Basher, Tobias Ellwood. But first, I've got Barry Gardiner, Labour MP for Brent North, in the studio. Barry, you're objecting to me describing you as left-wing. You're centrist, you're saying to me.
Absolutely.
You're a Blairite as well as a Corbynista, which is a heady combination.
Well, I've served under both.
You served under both, fair enough. Look, Barry, tell us Labour's reaction to the Boris news, the Boris bombshell having dropped on Friday night.
Look, I think the best way to deal with Boris is to ignore him.
Right.
I want to get on with the business of being in the opposition and then being in the government, because it's governing this country that is so sorely needed. And at the moment, we have a government that has lost any legislative agenda. I mean, the House is actually breaking up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon sometimes, because they have no legislative programme to put forward. Now, that is really worrying.
Forward a legislative programme. I think the argument is that it's being torn apart in the House of Lords.
Well, they can bring it back, as they have done, and then they've ignored their lordships, often very sensible amendments that the lordships have made. And unfortunately, you know, you look at some legislation, take, for example, the Animal Welfare Act. They could easily have brought that in. The legislative programme is so reduced at the moment, and yet they've said, no, we're not going to do it.
All right. But you've said, let's ignore him. MPs in your own party aren't willing to do that. We've got Chris Bryant taking to the airwaves, talking about how it's unfair that the members of the Privileges Committee are being regarded as impartial in some of these statements that have been made by Boris and his backers. We've got talk of his parliamentary pass being revoked. I mean, that's not ignoring him, is it? That's playing up and pandering to the press narrative that he is somehow the victim of a witch hunt.
Yeah, but look, isn't that always the way?
So his pass shouldn't be revoked, Barry?
Look, what Boris wants is to be the centre of attention. I
know, but should his pass be revoked?
I think, as I said to you, I think we should be ignoring him. At the moment, he's not...
Should his pass be revoked, yes or no?
His pass as an MP, of course, he's resigned as an MP.
His parliamentary access...
His parliamentary access as a former MP, he will have access to the House of Commons.
Should he remain having access, is what I'm asking?
My view is that's fine. I don't care
whether he can have access.
As far as I'm concerned, he can.
But he's no longer an MP. He's resigned with immediate effect. So what's the point of the Privileges Committee report now? Why should we see this report? It's dead. The report's dead. What's the point of it, apart from as a piece of political posturing and weaponry against Boris Johnson? Why is there a point? Why does the public need to see this?
No, let's be very clear. The Privileges Committee was there to see whether there had been an abuse of Parliament, whether somebody had lied to the House of Commons, and that's what the Privileges Committee... I haven't read the report, neither have you, I assume. Boris Johnson read the report, and he believed that it was so damning of him that he needed to resign. Now, as I say, I prefer to criticise people on the basis of what they've done, not on their personal attributes. And in that case, it's important to see what he is judged by the Privileges Committee to have done.
Do you not have any truck with the notion that, unlike any other politician in recent memory, Boris Johnson particularly appears to have been this target of a lot of coordinated attacks, not just by Labour, the SNP, Liberal Democrats, but also Tories in his own party. He's talked about being the victim of a witch hunt. Can you not recognise, with multiple parliamentary inquiries, suddenly a couple of weeks ago, the police being brought back in, that he has faced a greater amount of scrutiny than anyone else in Parliament?
He's faced a great deal of scrutiny.
Too much?
Very often that scrutiny has been because of his own, I would say, somewhat reckless behaviour.
But recklessness and intention are completely different things under the law.
Well, indeed, you'll be aware that that was one of the ladders that some members of the Privileges Committee offered to Boris in that committee, suggested that, look, perhaps you didn't do this intentionally.
Yes.
Perhaps you were a bit reckless, they said. And I think if Boris had seized that opportunity to climb back down, then it might have been a different outcome on the committee. He didn't. He expressly refused to climb down. And again, that may well be in the nature of the man.
I want to rattle through a few more questions because we've got limited time. Resignation honours, should they be abolished?
No, I think there's a place for them, but they shouldn't be...
Isn't it just reflective of a chumocracy?
But they shouldn't be abused.
OK. These by-elections, now, if Keir Starmer doesn't win them, he's going to be in a difficult position, isn't he?
No, I don't
Why
think
not?
so. Well, because...
Labour should be storming ahead in these polls, shouldn't they?
You will know that the seat in Uxbridge, Boris's own seat...
Yeah, Labour
I
should
think
win that.
we should win.
OK.
The other two seats, it's a 20 and a 24,000 majority.
Right.
So I really don't think that, with the best will in the world...
OK, how about doing pacts with the Liberal Democrats in those seats to keep the Tories out?
Look,
Is that something that you'd consider?
I'm not in the business of doing pacts. I believe even in a general election situation, if you're the largest party, then you should govern as the largest single party. You put forward your proposals to the electorate, you put them forward in a legislative programme in the House of Commons, and you get those who agree with you to vote it through. But deals are a way of politicians going to the electorate and saying, oh, well, I'm sorry, of course, I couldn't do what I promised you last time because of those other people.
No pacts for Barry, at least. I don't know whether that's the Labour leader's view. Let's move on to Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves' decision to water down the Green Prosperity Plan. Is this because finally you've realised that your plans are economically illiterate?
I think I have more faith in the Green Prosperity Plan than Rachel appears to.
Well, Ed Miliband has more faith in it than the Shadow Chancellor.
Let me explain why. Because I think Rachel was absolutely right in saying that if you want to grow the economy in a sustainable way, then the way to do that is through this Green Prosperity Plan.
What, by spending half the defence budget every year, 28 billion quid?
Camilla, let me advance the argument, OK? If you want to grow the economy and you say this is the best way of growing the economy, to engage and invest in the green future, then actually it makes no sense to say, but we're only going to do that once the economy's grown. It's your plan for growing the economy. Now, she's absolutely right to say that we have to keep the fiscal rules. But, of course, the first fiscal rule is that you want to get debt down as a proportion of GDP.
Why is she making proposals that contradict her own fiscal discipline?
That's my point. She's not. If you want to get debt down as a proportion of GDP, what you do is you grow the economy.
Yeah, you don't add 28 billion more a year to the spending.
I'm sorry. You borrow not for consumption, but for investment. And that investment grows the economy and it gives you more money for your day-to-day spending on consumption.
Is there an argument to say that Labour isn't the party of business, it's just the party of Just Stop Oil? You take all this money from Dale Vince. I mean, not all Labour voters agree with Just Stop Oil's tactics. You've come up with this plan about banning North Sea oil and gas.
No, sorry, Camilla, that's not true. I'm sorry, you know better than that, and it's not true.
That was what Keir Starmer suggested last weekend.
No, absolutely not.
But he wanted to stop drilling for oil and gas in the North Sea.
I'm sorry, you know very well...
What is it that he wants to do?
You know very well that actually there will be drilling for oil in the North Sea right the way through to...
Why have the unions objected to this if they don't think it's going to cost thousands of jobs?
Sorry, you've changed the question. Let me answer the first and then I'll answer the second. What has happened is they've said there should be no exploration for new sites. OK, so it's new fields.
And the unions have said that that's going to cost 45,000 jobs.
So you accept that I'm correct on the first point, where you wrongly said that there was no stopping of oil.
He said ban in future. OK, new drilling. If we're going to be semantic about it, it's the unions, not me, that have said it's going to cost 45,000 jobs. And I thought the Labour Party was meant to be the party of the worker.
The point here is this. If you are transitioning your economy to a new, green, cleaner future, what you have to do is you have to transition and create the jobs of the future before you lose the jobs of the past. And that's exactly what we need to do. We now need to be creating the jobs in wind turbines, in tidal power, in all the other ways in which we are going to have a green economy in terms of electric vehicles. All of the new technologies that we're going to need are the ones that we need to be investing in now. But we need to be doing that at a time when those old jobs still exist, but not actually investing more in what are going to be stranded assets that actually, if you look at what's happening in the financial sector, the world markets are saying we want to make sure that our investments are aligned with what we know the future is going to be, and that future is a clean, green future. You have the high-level experts panel at the UN saying we're not going far far enough
Barry.
and fast enough in investing in a clean future.
I'm going to have to wrap because it goes so quickly when we chat in our typically adversarial way. But I'm so delighted to speak to you this morning. Barry Gardiner, thank you for coming in on behalf of the Labour Party.